Congratulations
Oh, thanks, man.
on your film. What is your intention with this film, Paul?
What is my intention with this film? My intention is to just make fans laugh, make a silly comedy, make them happy, revisit some of the old characters, and hopefully do justice to the Fat Pizza, legacy. It seems a lot of people really love it.
Are you attempting to create a Marvel-type super franchise only with bogans instead of superheroes?
Look, why not? If Marvel Comics can just grab every character they ever had and put them in another film, I can do it too. But I actually am a big fan of comics. I was when I was a kid. So crossing over brands was something that was very kind of familiar to me when I was little. So there you go. And
just for the uninitiated, can we just make it clear that this is not a cynical move on your part to meld the worlds, that during the series you did actually have contact between the characters from both shows?
Yeah, no, look, the main reason we did it was because there was a lot of fans saying, they want more Fat Pizza, and look, Housos was going so well, so what could I do? Make two separate ones? I don't have enough time. I just stuck them together and now you've got one film with everything.
Paul, I keep describing you as a satirist. Is that fair?
Look, I don't know, if I looked at my sort of own stuff, if I jumped out of my body and looked at me from a distance, there is definitely satire, but I think we do a lot of slapstick, we do a lot of just action comedy, I don't know if that's slapstick as well. I think we're kind of a multi-genre. Anything that kind of works within it, we'll do it. If horror, or romance, or slightly, sort of anything that'll work, we'll use it, which is kind of unusual, I think, in comedy anyway. A lot of comedies have a very straight kind of style, but we just do it. In anything I do, I'll just do whatever works. There's no rules.
Has it ever been brought up with you that since around the year 2000, when pizza started, that you are in fact the most consistent producer of quality Australian sitcoms in this country?
I'll take that as a great compliment. Thank you. I like to feel that I am myself, but nobody's ever given me that compliment except for you, so thank you, brother.
But where's the rest of them?
Well,
why is sitcom such a desert when it comes to Australian comedy? Where are the rest of them, Paul?
Well, mate, I think there's a couple of reasons a lot don't succeed or stay. A is maybe just making TV shows full stop is it's a brutal world. The Roman gladiator experience was probably a lot easier than, you could last longer as a gladiator than you could on free-to-air television in Australia, just because, it's harsh. But I think a lot of comedians don't really want to understand the audience in Australia. They're very selfish, a lot of comedy creators. They make for themselves, not for the audience. But I learned that, again, like the Roman Colosseum, you have to go out there and perform for the people to come to see you.
Tell me about your fan base and the relationship you have with your fans.
Well, they're an incredible mix of people. On one end, in a day, I just bump into someone on the street. I can bump into a federal policeman at the airport and he'd be a big fan. And then I can bump into a 12-year-old kid who shouldn't be watching our stuff but is. And then I can sort of bump into, sort of a 40-year-old woman whose son loves it. So I used to feel like maybe we had a couple of concentrations of certain groups, but I think now we just get very individual people and very real Australians, people who exist in the real Australia. When I say real Australia, workers, people who are struggling, people who are not in the top 10%, they're probably the ones who love our stuff the most.
You use online very aggressively to find out how they're liking the show, what they'd like to see.
Definitely what. I think a lot of people use social media a little cynically. They call it marketing and whatever. For me, I just have a chat with them, I just put ideas out and I see what comes back, and I guess I have a very casual style with anyone, so but I listen, and I learned the hard way in some of my earlier stuff that if you don't kind of know who you're making it for and where it's going, it'll go nowhere, to no one, because you have no idea what the purpose of what you're doing is,
The term is overused almost to the point of being meaningless, but it always comes up in regards to your comedy, and you know the term I'm talking about, political correctness.
Yes.
To your mind, what does that mean, and how does it stifle the production of good comedy?
Well, political correctness is this kind of nanny kind of attitude where you're going to assume that doing something is going to offend or be detracting or terrible or whatever. There's this assumption without it actually happening, you know. And I think that, like American humour, America's just a very politically correct kind of country in general. So you say one thing and there's a court case, you know, or, you know, you say one thing and suddenly, you know, a whole lobby group will be out the front of your house with signs saying, you know, burn him, you know, like he's wrong. But Australia, I don't think we don't have a sensibility like that, particularly in humour. Person to person, our humour is it's very broad, it's very bawdy, and extreme humour is part of the Australian character. And that's why I fight it, because I think it's not because I necessarily hate political correctness, you know, for any particular reason. It's just that it's not an you can't attack Australian humour. Australian humour is one of the greatest qualities we have in this country. We don't have a lot in terms of like culture, but our humour is to me, it's the core of Australian culture, you know. So anyway, I'm fighting for it.
Also, so much of your comedy is based on send-ups, on caricature, on stereotypes. Isn't that pretty much one of the defining hallmarks of what comedy is, of what satire is?
Definitely. Well, you know, you want to have the cop that everyone hates, you know. You want to have the kind of, you know, Shaz is a great bogan girl, you know. I mean, the list goes on. We have a great ensemble of people who represent certain types of, you know, if you want stereotypes. It's funny, you know, people use the word stereotype like it's a bad thing, but in comedy, it's just an identifier for someone who's familiar, you know. I mean, if you had a character that made no sense at all, like if you had an Eskimo who had 3 legs and spoke a different language, who's that going to relate to? I mean, so stereotypes help you jump in as an audience to kind of get to know your character quickly. You go, okay, boom, Shazza, Bogan Aussie, I get it. I know those people. I know someone like that. That's my sister. That's my, you know, whatever. So,
I really want to know about that Logie win.
Yes.
It was obviously to you an overdue moment of validation.
It was. That's true.
Can you just take us inside that moment? What you meant by all the other fake stuff out there that you said? Could you just take us inside that remarkable moment?
Well, look, you know. I've been around the media for a long time, and particularly something like the Logies is a very, you know, it's a very airbrushed affair, you know, and I think a lot of the people who are in the media, they see themselves, well, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me like they seem to be apart from the rest of the country or the people that they're making for stuff for. It's like a little, you know, it's like the emperors of the media there, you know, like we're all blessed by their presence by turning up at the Logies or something, but... And our stuff, I always felt like, and as the years have gone by, you know, we really appreciate our audience, and they give us so much love. So, I never gave us a chance. You know, if you would ask me to put any money on it, it'd be the ultimate long shot. I wouldn't have put 1 cent on us winning a Logie, particularly because we're up against The Voice. So, the other thing was I got really drunk too. So, you know, when we won, it was just like, you know, I just couldn't believe it. Today I can't believe that we actually won it because, you know, being at the Logies, we always dress up, we try and act a little silly, have a bit of fun. And there's a lot of people who are kind of looking down their nose at us like, you know, who are these idiots? You know, like year after year, we go there, we think, okay, what's this thing about? It's not like the Academy Awards or something. Let's be a little entertaining. And there's always these people giving us that side look like, you know, who are these idiots? You know, so I just thought it was a great, you know, middle finger to all those people out there who don't like us, who are in that top little echelon of wankers who run the country. And, yeah, it was just a win for all the people who've supported us, and particularly Housos itself, some of the biggest fans of them. You know, you want to talk about Aussie battlers, that kind of cliche. Well, there are a lot of people struggling in Australia. You know, some are on welfare, some aren't. And they're the biggest fans of Housos. That's the closest kind of comedy representation of a lot of their world. And that's what I meant. It was a win for all of those people because they're the people you never see on TV. The media's not interested in them other than just kind of maybe, you know, calling them, you know, bludgers or, you know, there's always a negative stereotype, but I think at least with Housos we sort of celebrate the craziness and we show that kind of culture in a sort of funny way. So, yeah.
You threw one thong at the camera and the other thong into the crowd.
Yep.
Did you ever get the thongs back?
Didn't get the thongs back, and I was surprised that the Crown Casino let me walk around shoeless. I think I broke the OH&S laws there, but thank you, Crown Security, for overlooking that as I kind of wandered from here to there.
Do you ever get complaints?
Well, there's the odd one here and there, like, and look, you know, sometimes you do a joke and there's somebody's got a personal tragedy that might be related to that issue, and look, you know, you can understand why people would be upset about that, you know, but look, I'd say 98.9% of our stuff is appreciated for what it is, just silly comedy to give you a laugh, to give you that little kind of brief moment of happiness in a very bleak and dire world at the moment.
It is a rather bizarre turn in the way people see comedy, that there's always a reading into it. There always has to be an agenda. What does this comedy represent?
It's funny, like I read a lot about, because I think one of my great inspirations for the ensemble kind of comedy was Monty Python, and I always had this assumption that they just made their stuff and everyone thought they were really funny and there was no problems, but actually when you read about their stuff as well, like everything they made, everyone pretty much, 50% hated it and then 50% loved it. But now retrospectively, I think a lot of the people who would have been haters love their stuff, So I guess to me it always comes down to, if you do something a little different, you're always against the grain. So, but I think look, I can't complain, man. I've had a great, a lot of success and a lot of work, and I owe it all to the kind of people who kept watching.
Where did you learn to write so well for television? You have got to be one of the best writer-directors. You are so tight with pacing, with structure, with acts. I don't know if it's intended, but it's almost copperplate great television sitcom writing. Where did you learn this?
I've never had any formal training whatsoever. I guess I started making little funny short films when I was a teenager, and I was in kind of TV pretty early. I started cleaning floors and whatever, but I guess I watch a lot of movies and a lot of TV, which is a bit unlike a lot of my contemporaries. You ask them, have you seen that? And they go, I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch much movies. I read books. Remember, that was one of the classic things. I won't say which programmer of a television station. And they said, I don't watch a lot of TV. I read books. I thought, look, this is what we do. You've got to absorb it. You've got to know it. You've got to feel the rhythm of it. And I think all jokes have a 1, 2, 3 thing. There's kind of a little setup, and there's this, and then there's the funny bit, And at least with my stuff, I've seen the media become much faster. And as it's become faster, I've tried to adapt to that, because that's how people's brains are reading it a much quicker sort of pace. So, you've given me a great compliment by calling me a good writer. I've got no training. I don't know if it works. I don't know. I've made a lot of scripts, mate. It's like 110 half hours of comedy I've written in 10 or 11 years.
Yeah, all kudos to you.
Thank you, brother. It's just maybe it's just subconscious, because I love so much different comedy, and I watch it and soak it up, and the best bits of it are the bits that like anyone, that I remember, and I think I just try and, I don't know, a lot of my stuff's just really unconscious. I just got to do it. But also when you're cutting things and when you're sort of putting stuff in front of audiences, which I have been for a long time, you see what drags and what doesn't. And just, after you do it enough times, you kind of work out the kind of rhythm. So there you go.
Wog's Out of Work,
Yes.
What influence did that have? What barriers did that sort of movement break down that you've benefited from, do you think?
Oh, look, it's hard to know. I kind of feel like we existed in different kind of universes, because the way pizza came about, which was the beginning of all of this, was for me, was I had a couple of short films that won various kind of short film festivals, and I was working at SBS on something completely different. And South Park was doing really well for SBS at the time, and they wanted an Australian South Park. So I guess just by virtue of being at an ethnic broadcaster, somehow it worked. Did Wogs Out of Work help us? Maybe it did. I don't know. But nobody ever really kind of. I never felt that helped us directly, and it was actually a lot. I think it was quite a while before pizza as well. But look, that definitely was the first time you saw kind of some non-Anglo characters, apart from maybe something like Number 96 doing anything. So,
are there any rules that you impose on yourself when you're writing?
Look, sometimes some jokes are a bit close. Like, if you've seen a film like when the plane kind of goes down with the laser pointer, I did want to do some Malaysian kind of air reference, but and I was thinking more about the one that went missing than the one that crashed. And some people were like, "Oh, you can't do that." And I go, "You know what? You're right. Probably fair enough. There are tragedies out there that just hurt when you reference them. So it's only that sort of stuff. I like our humour to be always good-natured, in good spirits.
How independent are you when you operate both creatively and financially? I understand that with the previous film, you actually didn't want to wait around for SBS to renew the series, so you just went ahead and made the film, and you financed it yourself.
Yep. And that's the same. Look, it's the same, pretty much the same deal on this one. We just had a gap in kind of people giving us money to make a TV show, and I just said, well, it's time for this one. Let's do it. I put my own money in. I put my money where my mouth is, literally. And And there you go. I mean, there's no government money involved in this. I think they've got the distributors organised a little bit of government money to help with the distribution, but not the production at all. So I like to think that we function as commercial film should function. You know, in Hollywood and all that, all the big kind of places where production, you know, runs consistently, you don't get a government handout. You just have to be popular. That's just business, you know. So, yeah, you know, I think producing, you know, is a bit of an art form. Raising finance for, you know, these kind of crazy. I mean, particularly our stuff, it's pretty out there. It scares all the, you know, sponsors are always scared of our stuff. You know, you go to someone, there's almost no product placement because everyone's like, oh, not that stuff, that's too full on, you know. So we can't even do that. We just literally have to get the cash to make the production, you know. That's the thing I've just found that no one really is out there looking at what's going on in Australia and representing it in any way, you know, like sort of dramatically, comedically, and even sometimes I think the documentaries are very kind of they're from a bird's eye view, they're not from within, and I don't know, Australian media has to really grow up a little bit, and you have to get out of your ivory tower, get out there, soak it up, and then you'll be relative to the people you're trying to make.
And you research, don't you?
Oh, definitely. Man. Like when we did Housos, I went and snuck around a whole bunch of real Houso areas, you know, hiding in shopping centres, you know, all sorts of stuff. I mean, the next one I'm working on is, you know, it's got a whole lot of, it's actually really dangerous research for different reasons, but I'm out there, you know, I like to go and talk and listen and put myself on the front line, you know.